Time now is 20 minutes to 8.
Doing the laundry, it's always a bit of a chore, isn't it? Lots of people hate it, but if you dry your clothes on radiators, apparently it can have serious implications for your health, because scientists from around the world are gathering in Manchester today to raise awareness of a condition called Aspergillosis.
It's caused by mould spores in the air, and it can lead to infections for people with existing lung problems. We'll discuss it in a moment. First, let's find out a little bit more about it.
A common household chore for many of us, but the moisture released from drying clothes inside can create a breeding ground for the fungal mould Aspergillus. This video shows the fungus growing. So what is it? Well, Aspergillosis usually affects the respiratory system, but it can spread to anywhere in the body. It's caused by breathing in tiny particles of the mould that hang in the air, which can be found in rotting leaves, compost, heating systems and dust. Symptoms include wheezing and coughing. Most people are naturally immune, but those with conditions like asthma or weak immune systems are much more likely to develop aspergillosis. Once diagnosed, it can be treated with antifungal medication. There are a number of different ways of inhaling the mould, but for now, people with existing breathing problems are advised not to dry their washing on radiators. Gita Pense, BBC News.
Well, let's find out a bit more, shall we? We're joined in the studio by Professor David Denning, who's the director of the National Aspergillosis Centre, and Anne Saunders, who has the condition. Morning to both of you. Thanks for coming in. And when the doctor said it's Aspergillosis, you didn't know what it was. I wouldn't have known what it was.
No.
Talk us through, what are the symptoms? How do you suffer?
It's just, I have really bad asthma, chronic asthma, and it's just getting worse and worse. And I was in Vasachley Hospital, and I was just getting transferred to different specialists. And then in the end, Dr. Jabati in Vasachley said to me, we need to do a deep scan. And then from there, he said, we need to send you to Withenshaw. We think it's Aspergillosis.
And how does it affect your life?
It's just normal things. I can't ride a bike if I'm walking or playing with my grandson Luke. He's 13 now, but when he was a toddler, I couldn't pick him up. I couldn't run around with him and things like that, and with my own children as well.
Must have been really frustrating.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
No.
Once you have this.
It can go if on medication, but I'm not sensitive. It won't go out of me at all.
So, Dr. Denning, lots of people, we dried our clothes on radiators when we were students, when we were at home, when I was growing up. It just seems like the perfectly normal thing to do, especially now, snowing outside, clothes freeze on the washing line rather than, than not being outside. What should people be thinking about?
The problem with clothes is that there's 2 litres of water in every load of washing. So you put that in a small room and then you don't open the windows, and day after day as you wash your clothes you get more and more condensation and you get dampness, and then that allows mould to grow.
So it's what grows on the actual windows, it doesn't go on your clothes?
No, it can grow on the plasterwork, it can grow behind the bed. And in fact, we have Aspergillus in our pillows as well. So it isn't just that, but all the dampness increases the growth. That's the problem.
I mean, people will be looking around their houses nervously at the moment, thinking, I'm looking out for signs of mould. If you can't see any mould, does that mean you haven't got it in your house and you're okay, you can carry on doing it, or is this an invisible threat?
It's mostly visible. People have had floods or problems in their homes with leaks. Sometimes get mould in the backs of behind cabinets in the kitchen, for example, and you might not know that, but most people do know it. But mouldy homes are a big problem. But also composting, so big compost heaps, bark chippings. So there are several other risks. It isn't just the clothes in the room, but that's the one that's completely avoidable.
Because Anne, you were just saying before we came to you for the interview that you didn't think you got yours from the radiators. You think it was from the trees.
It's you get it off trees, plants, cut flowers, soil in the garden, extractor fans in the home, everywhere. It's just that everyone breathes this in, but because I'm so sensitive, it sticks in the lung and grows as a mould.
Well, let's talk about why Anne has been affected more than others, which meant because you're asthmatic. Who is at risk, and what should you be thinking about? Because anyone watching this morning, hearing this, is going to think, well, no choice. I'm exposed to it anywhere, unless I hide in a bubble, which no one can do. So what should we be thinking about in terms of that?
So asthma, which is not well controlled, is the commonest problem, and there's probably 100,000 people in this country, maybe as many as 250,000 people who have that problem. So asthma with fungal sensitisation and poorly controlled asthma. Also patients who've got really bad lungs because they've had TB or they've got emphysema, COPD. Those patients can get a disease a bit like Anne's, but a bit worse because it destroys the lungs and they cough up blood and they lose a lot of weight with it. And then there's a third group which get a life-threatening infection who've got leukemia or transplant. So their immune systems are really low, and this infection doesn't cause this chronic thing which Anne has got, a much, much more serious infection.
But it can be treated.
Yes, most of the time we treat it successfully, but we've got two problems. Sometimes patients can't tolerate the drugs, and Anne will tell you about her experience, and sometimes we have resistance to the drugs.
And if you see mould growing, you know, in the room where you've got your washing machine or your radiators and things, I guess try and get rid of it. I suppose, does that minimise the threat?
It does, absolutely. So changing the way that the water is handled and air is handled in the house is very important. Ventilation is a really critical part. And then sometimes you need to replaster and get rid of some old mouldy furniture, backs of furniture as well.
I suppose, Anne, as well, I mean, you've been having medication, but you've become almost resistant to something as well,
I've just been on a new drug now, and it seems to be working really well. But January I was really ill. Really ill.
I bet you're glad it's at least being talked about and the message is getting across.
Yeah. Well, even nurses, even in the studio today, they said, "What have you come for? And what's that?" No one's got a clue what it is. No one.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and helping us get the message out there and talking to our viewers, Anne. And we wish you well. Hope the health improves. And Dr. David Dane, thank you very much as well.
Okay, thank you.